We're going to move the conversation to the left. We're going to invite Jon and Marty into a segment of the show we called In the Gym with Jon and Marty, the only place on the planet you can sit down with one of the world's strongest men, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, one of the greatest athletes of all time, with the greatest less brunches, more crunches merchandise on the planet. Chris Martin, Jon Andersen are going to get into the gym. Tina and Keith are getting off stage for the next 10 minutes. And Chris is going to sit down with Jon and talk to Jon about his strongman career and what it was like being the world's strongest man. Chris Martin.
I was the North American strongest man, never the world's strongest man.
I say one of the world's strongest men.
For sure. I was ranked in the top 10 a few times, top 20 quite often. But in terms of the actual strongest, my biggest title was North American strongest man.
I appreciate that clarity. And you know what I appreciate, Tina and Marty? I love humility. I love when people like Rich are like, yeah, I just went up 17,000 feet and did something pretty good. And I like Jon, yeah, I was not the world's strongest man. I was only the strongest guy in North America, Marty. I was just some guy who's strong in North America, Chris.
And I won that in Saskatchewan, which might have been one of the oldest I've ever been in my entire life.
From one side of the province to the other.
Man, I'm telling you, that was some cold stuff.
All right, Marty, I want to hear what Johnny's got to say about being North America's strongest man. Tina, let's get out of here.
Keith, I like to dig into people, man.
I know you do, brother, pal.
All right, Jon. So what started you? What got you on this path? Was it after you owned the gym? Was it after wrestling?
It goes back to being a slow little bastard. I had some whopping learning disabilities. So my mom recognized this, and we didn't have a TV in the house because she knew that was going to make it worse. And so when I did get to see TV or got to go to the movies, it was very impactful. And I saw the movie Conan the Barbarian for the first time. I'd never even seen Arnold before. I'd never seen a human being like that. And it hit me in the chest. And shortly after this time is when I started to discover that I was good at lifting weights. And so really the journey kind of came along from the fact that I realized I had success lifting weights. And then I started to realize as I was getting good at lifting weights that I was far stronger than I looked. So I had this edge with lifting heavy shit, not just looking the part. And so ultimately I trained all through college and came out of college. And in my mind, I still got the mind of the fat little boy. So I didn't believe that I was strong enough to do it. Looking back, I was. I just didn't believe in myself yet. And so it came down to what really pulled the trigger for me was one of my training partners. He said, look, we've been training together for 10 years and you're the strongest guy wherever we go by a long shot. I don't have that strength. You left me in the dust a long time ago. He said, if you won't compete for yourself, do it for me. And I was like, whoa, okay, I guess I need to pull up my panties and give this a crack. And so at that point, I went to my first contest, won it, qualified for a national, won it, went to the pro nationals and placed high enough to get on the international team, and off I went.
So
yeah, strongman is, of course, there's, you're dealing with squats and deadlifts, but you're pulling airplanes and lifting up Atlas stones and flipping over cars, a lot of real functional shit. And one of the things that I really had to learn with my training in strongman is I had to really understand that I needed to pursue failure, because you were basically given a time limit to do as much as you could in that time limit, which means you were going to fail. And if you were stepping in when your name was called and you came out of the tent and the cameras were on, if you were afraid to fail, you weren't going to do very well. Of course, you're driven by failure, but you knew you're going after it, because when you're pursuing failure, you're getting deeper into the process. So I taught myself to pursue failure in the gym, where I would literally, most people when they're squatting, they squat in the cage, in the squat rack. So me realizing I needed to take things to the next level and teach myself to truly pursue failure, I started squatting on the outside. So I would move the hooks to where basically when I stood up and took a step back, there was nothing around me. And I would tell my training partners to get back, because I had zero intention of putting it away. I was going to crash. I was going to fail. And so what I would shit, man, at this time I'm putting like 700 pounds on there, and I'm going after, just all I'm trying to do is get one more rep than the last time. The outcome is so massive. That right there really taught me how to pursue failure. And what I learned in the gym, I just carried that into business. I carried it into everything, but especially into strongman. When I learned to literally go out there and pursue failing is when I really started to excel.
So tell us about the time you got your ass kicked. Was it a person? Was it a bad day? And how did that get you to the next level? What did you do to overcome that and hit those goals and become the strongest man in North America?
That's a good question. When it comes down to it, you're asked for a day or a circumstance. And I
Yeah,
guess
like a
my
scenario.
answer,
Give us a story.
my first reaction to that is I was always trying to find a situation where I was getting my ass kicked. And so because especially in training, when you're getting your ass kicked, you're getting better. And so what that prompted me to do was to basically go and seek training partners that were better than me in these disciplines. So I had a training partner for the power lifts because squat and deadlift was a big part of Strongman. I had a training partner for the actual events themselves, for Strongman events. I had a training partner for Olympic lifting. And so their job as my training partner and coach was to kick my ass. So I got my ass kicked all the time. It would basically be me pushing myself as far as I thought I could go, knowing that training partner coach was going to find a way to get me to take one more step or one more rep. And so when it comes down to it, like I'll tell a story of often what I would do to practice this is I would take 4 plates or 5 plates or 6 plates, which is 405, 595, or 585. And I would use this as an exercise with squat. But what I would do is I would basically use this as an opportunity to get my ass kicked because, for example, on a set of 405, man, I was doing in the 40 reps in one set. And so I was getting myself in a position where I knew I was going to get my ass kicked. And I did this very regularly. And my training partner's job was to make sure that I got past where I thought I could go in a set doing 495, 5 plates a side. 27 was my best on that one. Anytime I got over 20 was just hammer time. 22 was even more. So I would get myself in these positions and I would basically just start biting it off one at a time. I say, you know what? I know I can do one more. And I take a deep breath and I go down and I come back up. And I know I can do one more. At this point, I'm not counting because my training partner is doing the tallying for me. It's at that point, can I do one
It's
more?
a distraction.
Even when I would crash, we basically fail, meaning I couldn't stand back up. I still believed I could do one more because that belief was what allowed me to get through all of the reps up to that point. That voice in your head is saying, you're going to die. You're a dipshit. What are you doing? Go home. It's saying everything it needs to do to get you out of there. But you break it down to the most simple format. And when you're really enduring discomfort, you break it down into these little micro steps because you can take one more breath. You can take one more step. You can get one more rep until you don't. And usually when all the dust settles, you've made it further than you did before. And that right there is a philosophy that I applied to all areas of my life that has served me extraordinarily well.
In the Gym with Jon and Marty. What a great segment. Marty, you want to wrap it up, pal? Marty, some great questions, but Marty, you want to close it up with Johnny, pal?
Yeah. First of all, great story. But anybody who's scared to chase failure or scared to chase that ass kicking, well, there's some words for them, Johnny.
I think when it comes down to it, you're only scared of what you don't know because number one, getting your ass kicked doesn't hurt as bad as the anxiety that you're having about getting your ass kicked. And then number two, getting your ass kicked actually makes you feel really good. And once you start to realize, holy shit, I need an ass whooping to feel that way. The ass whooping is just the step that you got to take to get the feeling that you're chasing.
And Johnny, talk about the fact that when we hear ass whooping, like it's not for hours. It's like it's seconds, right? And it's recognizing that those seconds of ass whooping pain make you feel exceptional for the other 24 hours of the day. And lean into that because there's somebody right now that's about to fucking do something. They're like, I don't want to do it. Tell them that it's 10 seconds, 20 seconds. It's not even a fucking minute of chaos pain to achieve greatness.
I think that what you got to remember is that the pain is temporary, but what you achieve from the pain, you getting a little bit better, when you cross that barrier of pain or getting your ass kicked, guess what? You get to meet a slightly better version of you on the other side of that. And when you start to think, man, what does that son of a bitch look like? What is he? How strong is he? What's his mental attitude? Because I know he's a little better than me and I can't wait to get in his skin.
Good advice, good information, good conversation. In the Gym with Jon and Marty every single day at 19 Eastern time. The only place you're going to get expert advice and stories and experiences from these two guys.